What's up, everyone, and welcome to Tide Talk, the Rhode Island FC podcast that's for the fans, by the fans. I'm your host, Matt, and whether you're a day one sicko or new to RIFC, you found your home. Every episode, we're breaking down the latest from Rhode Island FC, the matches, the moments, the players, and everything happening in and around the club. Before we dive in, make sure you're following Tide Talk across all of our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, and everywhere you scroll. Stay tuned for our updates, exclusive content, and all things Rhode Island FC. If you're joining us on YouTube, please say hi in the chat. Remember, it's live the whole time. Share your thoughts, and we'll pull them up on screen. And if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts, please take a second to like, subscribe, leave us a rating and a 5-star review. It helps more people find our podcast and helps us grow to bring you even better content each and every single week. All right, cozy up, crack a beer. Let's dive into this one. I've got a different cast today. We've got a friend of the pod, a longtime listener, Leo, joining us today. Leo, how's your day been? How's everything going after last night's madness?
It's been pretty good, man. It's been pretty good. Keeping busy, but nothing too out of line.
That's it. You've got kind of a project you might be undertaking, and kind of a club starting up that you're following and might be getting involved with. So you want to tell our listeners kind of what's going on behind the scenes with you of late?
Yeah, just kind of briefly. I know those of you that have been in the Discord, the Defiance 1636 Discord, have probably seen me kind of post a few things about it as I had seen just some things get put out on social media about a new club that's going to be coming to New Orleans, Louisiana, called NOLA Ramparts. They're going to be playing in the league for clubs. And so I just recently been getting in touch with the head coach and just talking to him, learning more about what the club's going to be all about, and bringing up the possibility of a podcast. So we'll have to see how things end up developing over the next couple months, because they'll be starting playing in the league for clubs in May. So they are going to be hopefully coming out with a bang. But it's going to be super exciting seeing something new coming to the city of New Orleans.
Pretty cool. And they announced their tryouts today, I believe you were saying?
Yeah, so they actually just put out on social media and on their website that they're going to be having tryouts at Pan American Stadium in City Park on March 28th. So if anyone happens to be watching or listening from the greater New Orleans area, it's a soccer player interested in checking it out, I encourage you to hit them up on social media, hit them up on the website. If I remember correctly, there was a fee to sign up for the tryouts. I don't want to misquote it, so I'm gonna just direct people to the website and to the Instagram. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Mr. Hands, how are you today? Ryan says pay attention. I'm glad you took a Bellotro break to join us on the podcast this evening.
Yeah. Doing pretty good. Looking forward to talking about the game and everything coming up ahead this weekend. So excited.
Awesome. You got a shout out in the chat, Leo. Hearing you have a big sports card collection. Is that true?
Yeah. I've been in the sports cards since I was a kid. Started with football, but it kind of blew up from there.
Awesome. We'll have to get you a special print of this Timmy Sclafani Flair card. It looks like he burnt out a whole crowd section there. Luckily, there wasn't too many people down in 116 last night. Leo, we'll start with you and your review. You watched this one from home, right?
I did. Yeah. I hit it up on YouTube.
Awesome. Hands, you sat in the cushy seats last night. How was that?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's not 205, but it's pretty interesting. Yeah, clubhouse is nice. I got to sit right outside the clubhouse because it was GA, so I didn't have like a specific seat, so I got to sit in one of those cushy seats that's right outside the clubhouse, kind of like behind section 106 or like above it, so to speak. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty comfy, decent view. Again, not as good as we have it up in 205, but yeah, pretty nice. The club did a good job with the clubhouse and all that stuff, so it's nice. And if that's your thing, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, if you have the spare chunk of pocket change to spend on that one, that's I think that's the key to that one, the key catalyst there. Wanted to thank High Motor for having us and having us do our live show. And all of those of you who tried to watch it on YouTube, and we battled through some technical difficulties. So big shout out to Quadros and Timmy for getting that going. And thank you to everyone who was inside of High Motor for being patient with us as we negotiated the setup in there. It did not help not having Ryan. Ryan's our IT guy, so that totally worked. But we got it through. We got it in. We saw probably one of the worst attempts at splitting a G of all time by El Presidente Irvin Vargas. It was pretty sad. So you can go out back and check that video out. He did have his first Guinness ever, so I do give him credit. That is definitely an acquired taste for a newbie, I would say. But a lot of big shout out to everyone who came and joined us. It was a fun time. I think everyone inside had fun. Really cool was hearing a lot of the juniors yell out answers inside of High Motor, that getting all their takes on things. But I watched from 116, and even though 116 was not the 116 that we see on the weekends, it was so much fun last night. Starting off with the Faialense goalkeeper and heckling him the whole time. What a good sport that dude was. Like, just absolutely incredible. And he got it from the beginning. He turned around and clapped at a few. You could tell he was having a good time. Shout out to, I believe it was Matt Jean, who gave him the Defiant scarf at the end of the match. Just a really cool dude who embraced the environment. I sent him a DM on Instagram. He sent a really nice response. It was Lucas Verge. He said, "Thank you. Love the crowd. Honestly, RIFC is very lucky to have such a passionate group of supporters. That's what the game is all about." So that's a guy who gets it, big picture. We heckled him for the full 45 minutes of the first half and then clapped him at the end of the game, got him to come over. And I think that was a really, really cool piece. But it was, as Ryan says in the chat, it was definitely a night for the sickos. It was, have you ever done it in a cold night in Pawtucket? That was it. What was weird to me, Hans, I don't know if it was the same way up in the cushy seats, but I actually thought I thought Saturday was actually a little bit colder with the wind. Temperature-wise, it was definitely colder last night, but the wind on Saturday, I think, was the big difference maker.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing during the game, although I was definitely more bundled up and better prepared than I was on Saturday. Man, it was so cold Saturday with the wind, and the blankets they gave out did basically nothing to keep you warm, which, I'm not going to complain about. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting a really high quality product if you're giving 3,000 away at the gate, but I saw some people with them on last night too. But yeah, still pretty bitterly cold. So hopefully it starts to warm up for us soon at these games for April anyway.
For sure. Matt Leonard says in the chat, after Saturday, last night was easy. I think so too. It was. I was a little bit better prepared as well. I brought gloves. My hands were the only thing on Saturday that really bothered me. But brought gloves. That was good. It was a fun time. And as Pawtucket Jay says, and as you just mentioned, Matt, summer needs to get here ASAP so we can have those warm games, just wearing a kit and shorts and ready to go.
I got to learn to blog with gloves. That might help me because on these cold games, because I got to get my hands on my pockets all the time, typing away.
You got to get those fancy ones with like the silver tips so you can type on the screen.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the starting lineup. Koke Vegas and net. We had Aldair Sanchez, Garifa Yao, CJ Williams, Danny Rivera, Noah Fusan, Hugo Baccarat, Kevin Vang, Dwayne Atkinson, Logan Dorsey, and Gogo Peters for the starting 11. Leo, we'll start with you. What was your thoughts when you saw this 11? We knew we were going to see some rotation, but kind of as expected. Any surprises in there for you?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, that's pretty much what I was expecting. I didn't necessarily expect to see a whole lot of the lineup that we saw on Saturday. Just looking at what we were dealing with compared to what we typically are used to when it comes to the league play. I'll be honest with you, the one player I thought we were potentially also going to see could have been Pity. I would not have been shocked if Pity would have gotten more minutes, just also because of an aspect of how late he got in the preseason. But then again, I mean, as I was looking back at the lineup again, I'm like, I honestly have no idea who he would have been in place of unless he was there in place of Garifa and Ugo was pushed back to center back. But I imagine we'd probably much preferred him not back in the back line in the midfield like he played last year.
For sure. Matt Jean says, Tide Talk busting out the full government names. For the record, this was not my graphic. This is from the YouTube stream. So this is the U.S. Open Cup stream. Yeah, you can blame them in USA Soccer for doxing everyone fully. seeing some of these really didn't know Gogo's full name, didn't know Danny's full name. So kind of good to see that out there. Hands, for me, I was really surprised to see Koke in on this one. We saw Castro not on the bench. We saw Will Meyer on the bench in the previous game. So it kind of wondered, was it going to be Meyer? Was it going to be Castro? So Koke was a big surprise for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was what jumped out to me the most. It's weird. Like, I don't like, this is the lowest level of competition that we're going to play the entire season. So you would expect that you would see Castro or Meyer. And it almost like, I don't want to like overreact if we don't know what else, if there's anything else going on, but like, it almost like, to me, like one of my thoughts was like, do we not have confidence in those backups? Because like, we can't even play them against an amateur team. Like, that's strange.
Sure.
And, but obviously always happy to see Koke out there, of course, but I would have rather seen, backups that we could see, at least even as fans, just kind of be more comfortable, because we were used to having Jackson Lee the last couple of years. Very, very, very good backup. And now we kind of, at least us, we don't know what we have. So it would have been nice to see one of them. But, and then the rest of the lineup seemed fine to me. Like, again, pretty much expected. Maybe a little surprised Yao started, but I mean, that guy's always playing. And it's not like we could have completely rotated the back line. So,
sure.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Gave the elder statesman and Grant Stoneman a little bit of a rest. So I guess that was good there. Leo, Matt Jean's got a pretty good question here. I mentioned with Castro not being on the bench and Will Meyer being on the bench on Saturday, but still seeing Koke. Do you think this is because he missed so much of the preseason, kind of get another game under his belt? Or do you think it was more to do with potentially Castro not being fully available?
Personally, I mean, similar to how I had said, my thought was with why I would have expected to see Pitti. I mean, did I expect to see Koke? No. But am I necessarily surprised, judging by the fact that this is the second game of the season and people were paying very close attention all off season and didn't really see him? So that would be the top thought in my head of why we saw him instead of Will Meyer yesterday. But yeah, that's as far as I would think.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that. So good shout by Mr. VP Matt Jean on that one. That's a really good one. Andrew Milkos is in the chat. I was a coward and hung out in the club with my 12-year-old, and I enjoyed not fighting the win this time. I definitely get that. It was nice to warm up for a minute or two going to the bathroom, but I do have to mention the bathrooms before we talk about the game. The only open bathrooms last night were in the club level in the one family restroom behind 116, which is a single door that locks. So either way, you were looking at about an 8 to 10 minute round trip to go to the bathroom in this one. A lot of people already filled up with Guinness from High Motor and other beverages. So bathroom trips needed to be strategically planned in this one, especially with the cold adding onto it too. But, I get it from a stadium operations perspective and, not wanting to have to clean every single bathroom in the stadium, but they could have left one open behind the supporter section, seeing how that's where the majority of the crowd that was in the lower stadium was concentrated. Maybe next time, maybe it'll be a learning experience, but that would be good. It was, as Pawtucket J said, BS in my opinions. But let's talk about the kind of early few minutes, and we'll start with you, Hands. Thoughts as this one got started, and we'll talk about the goal after this. But thoughts on how you thought we looked early on.
Yeah, I thought we looked pretty good early on. I mean, as you would expect against against Faialense, against an amateur team. Yeah, I don't know. Not much to say, I guess, before the goal. I mean, the goal was relatively early, but yeah. I mean, we looked solid. Didn't look like we needed to really get out of first gear, really, for pretty much the whole game, I would say. So, yeah, created some chances, had the ball, looked pretty good.
How about you, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar to Matt. It felt pretty similar in a sense to what we saw on Saturday when it came to that clear intention of pressing forward and maintaining that forward presence. But I mean, honestly, the one thing that kind of struck me was just seeing the positioning that CJ and Karifa had, especially early, the width that they had in the back line. really throughout a large part of the first half, but it just kind of struck me seeing how consistently they were just drifting out toward the wings, just consistently.
And there was also one point, I don't know if it was Matt Jean that said it to me. Someone standing on the rail mentioned it to me, but it was one very long stretch where Karifa was basically the only center back. It was basically like a 1-9 going on. It was pretty impressive with the amount of numbers we were throwing forward. As far as the early game for me, I thought Dorsey was kind of pressing, and I get that. He's a new player. He just scored in the opener, but I thought he came out and was really trying to, tackle the game, very aggressive, trying to dribble through too many people at times and kind of got caught up with the ball. But I do love the effort which he plays. He's a hustler. He's a workhorse. I kind of see him, after seeing that first game, as the number 3 striker on the team behind Leo and JJ. But I think it's a hell of a sub to be able to bring off the bench and bring him on. Any of your guys' thoughts on Dorsey?
Yeah, I agree on Dorsey. I was actually expecting him to do more in this game, and
Sure.
he hurt my club collector because I went heavy on Dorsey in club collector. But no, he definitely has the energy. We saw it off the bench against Sporting Jacks, and then we saw it here from the start. So yeah, big fan of his. I totally agree. I think he's going to be behind JJ and Leo to start the season, but great sub to bring on, especially if you need to give JJ in particular like a break, because we know how physical JJ plays. Sometimes we don't want him to go the full 90. So yeah, I'm excited about him based off of the 2 performances.
Sure. Leo, your thoughts?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I think one of the things that people have talked about for a while that we've been missing is someone at striker that's not JJ that can provide that pressure and energy. Chico did it, but I think there were a lot of fluctuations throughout our experience with Chico. Plenty of times where he was pressing well, doing that, but then there were also plenty of times that people would just rib him for it. So
absolutely, that's a good shout.
It's good to see someone that's doing that, and really, honestly, multiple. But I imagine you guys touched on Leo from the first game, but it seems like we have that in Leo and Logan now.
For sure. Just 13 minutes into this one, RIFC got on the goal sheet, and here's a look at that first goal.
You're playing part-timers, you feel in your mind you should be able to break them down.
Vang plays it through. Sanchez! A lovely ball in and a fantastic finish. And Rovira puts Rhode Island on top 1-0 early on.
So a lot of good in the build-up to this one. Some really nice triangle passing that led in. I don't know what was better, Hands, the ball in from Vang or the cheeky little finish there from Danny?
Yeah, close. I'll go with Vang. Great ball from Kevin Vang. He had a great game overall. And yeah, you're totally agree. Great. Matt Jean, Danny's biggest fan. Danny did really well too. But yeah, on that move, great passing, like you said, great triangle, quick moving the ball quickly, and perfect pass from Vang. Not everyone can do that. So
that's a tough pass to weight correctly, to kind of flick it in over the defender like that, and then Danny takes it off the bounce and just has such a beautiful deft touch on that to slot it in. Just really, really well worked, and kind of something I think you would want to see against lesser opposition.
Yeah, for sure, and yeah, really happy for both of them too, because we barely, I think, at all saw Danny last year. Obviously, Kevin, hasn't gotten into too many games in his time here, but very well thought of by Kano, and always love to have a Rhode Island kid, playing out there, and so it was awesome. Very, very happy for both of them.
Good stuff. Leo, your thoughts on the opening goal?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. One of the things that I feel like we struggled with leading up to it was that close quarters area in the final third, just outside of the box, just on the front side of the box right there. And it felt like we needed something like that pass, that 1-2, the give and go, because Danny dropping it off to Kevin and making that specific run was what we needed to kind of break down that close quarters.
I'm glad you mentioned the run there, because it was a vertical, but he was on a diagonal too, so it was able to open up that window between those two center backs.
Yeah, really and truly, he was kind of with the diagonal cutting back outside. It almost kind of pulled those center backs forward. So whether he would have actually finished it off or not, it created some availability in the middle, which was what we had been missing up until that point. It didn't end up being needed, of course, but I mean, without the combination of the run and the vision from Kevin Vang knowing where to try to put that ball and weight it, wouldn't have happened. So it was a great combination from both of them for sure.
Well said. We got a good question in the chat from William. Are we comfortable having Rivera be so up on the field, or is that just a product of the formation? I'll start with you, Hans. My initial take, I'll give my kind of short version of it, though, is that I think this might have been more a product of the competition than the formation, with throwing so many people forward. As I mentioned, there was one point where Karifa was literally the only defender back. So I think this was more due to the competition. I think in a game where you might see Danny get minutes over Scardina, it might be, because we're looking to throw numbers forward, looking to attack. But your thoughts on that, Hans?
Yeah, I totally agree. I should have mentioned earlier when you were asking about the game before the goal. Yeah, it was interesting to me. We played like a back four, which we normally play the three center backs, and look like more of a back four with Danny being more of like a traditional right back. So in that aspect, yeah, I don't think it was really a product of that formation, but you're right. It's really the opponent. We were able to get him so much further forward because, we didn't need to sit back as much. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Like in the future, if he gets minutes, it's going to be for Scardina as like a right wing back. And naturally in that sense, he'll be getting, forward probably more often with, the three center backs having cover behind him in probably Stoneman or Frank, whoever plays over there. So, but yeah, I was impressed though. I thought Danny did pretty good defensively as well. I was sitting right over there, so like right for the first half, he was kind of right in front of me, made some good tackles there, and obviously showed his good control. Like Ghost of FQB says here, good control, perfect touch on that play. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with him.
He did have a really good tackle, and big shout out to our photographer, Edwin. He got a really good shot of it. It's posted on our Instagram. It's just foot on the ball with the defender going down the flank. But Danny did play very well. We'll kind of break down his full stat line a little bit later in this one. 13 minutes later, RIFC doubled it on a pretty monumental goal for Rhode Island FC fans in scoring goals at Tidewater Lore.
Mentioned Portland Hearts of Pine, a team that Rhode Island eliminated to get to the round of 32, as this corner is put in, and somehow that trickles by Lucas Verge. Give the goal to C.J. Williams, two unlikely goal scorers for Rhode Island in this first half.
So getting clips from this game was pretty tough because the U.S. Open, tweeted out their highlights on just the first one on YouTube. So we had to go clip a few, but this one being in this portrait mode, I think was perfect to be able to sneak that sandwich back there. I think that was key to this one. But a corner kick goal nonetheless. CJ Williams was another impressive player on the night, and we'll talk about his full stat line a little later on in this one. But very nice ball in on the corner and a nice finish there from CJ. What are your thoughts on this one, Leo?
Yeah, honestly, the first word that came to my mind was relief, because just with all the pressure going on for the constant battle for the chicken last year.
Before you continue too, let's replay this. And
mentioned
just
Portland Hearts of Pine, a team that Rhode Island eliminated.
You can hear that "We Want Chicken" chant loud and clear. And I mentioned it on the last podcast with Ryan. I said one of the things I think I missed all winter was chanting with fellow grown people and children about wanting chicken. I think it was, very well earned, very well deserved, and a long time coming. Sorry to cut you off there, Leo.
No, you're good. You're good. But it was also good, especially from that side. I found myself constantly saying, "Come on, Ugo. Come on, Ugo." Like that was the one thing I was really hoping to see from Ugo was more involvement on the corner kicks in some fashion, whether it's actually getting his head to it to put it on goal. He had a few of them that ended up being great saves throughout last season, especially at home. but just seeing him get involved in some fashion was just really encouraging. And CJ happened to be the right guy in the right place at the right time. Very happy to see him score on his debut. I was personally very impressed with how he played yesterday.
I was too, and also worth noting, he made a visit to the Chick-fil-A in Attleboro today to help take some of the orders and pass out some of the sandwiches. So that was pretty cool how they brought him into that. FQB says CJ Williams is going to be an outstanding off the bench defensive sub and injury fill-in. I think where last season Rio kind of became that defensive utility knife that we would bring in, play center back, play right back. I think CJ is going to be a very good fill-in on this team. He's a big kid too. He's got some good size to him and the wherewithal to get in the box and get a nice touch on the ball to slot a corner kick home. Your thoughts on the goal, Hans?
Yeah, pretty scrappy goal, but it was a corner, so it was a monumental goal, obviously, for all the chicken, for the free chicken. But yeah, see, just on CJ, like, he's one of my guys now because he's one of the two guys I did a blog on in the off season. So I got to root for CJ, and also Sarah talked to him, and he seemed like after the first game on
Super
Saturday,
nice.
he seemed super nice. Yeah, she was saying that he was like, "Oh, I never signed my name this much like in my life." She's like, "Oh, I'll get used to it. Like it's gonna be like this every week."
He did leave. I did hear that comment from Sarah, and he did leave Autograph Alley with the Tide Talk sticker. So big shout out to
awesome.
CJ on that one. But Tuckett J brings up a good point that'll bring me to my next slide. The controversy still continues, though. Notice the size of the crowd. They threw us a bone to the smallest crowd ever at Tidewater. And I'd go as far, we'd have to probably go back and look, but I'd say this was probably the smallest attended game we've ever had inside the new short history of the new stadium, which brings me to my next point. Big Chicken is alive and well. And thank you to Pawtucket J for that beautiful segue. I was totally going to roll with that. This was, I think, a pre-planned, pre-designed goal by Big Chicken to get people with chicken to the fewest amount of people possible. All right. So this was not included in your season ticket package. They didn't want to, and credit to the club for that. I think that was well done. They didn't want to devalue your ticket by giving you a $10 ticket instead of whatever the other games might be, depending on where you sit. But, you actually had to click a link, buy a separate ticket, and, purchase this to get it in your account. So people probably saw the weather on this one and thought, I'm not going to be going to this one. We heard rumors that there were only 500 total tickets sold for this match. And I don't know if there was 500 people there last night. I'd be hard pressed to think so, although the club level was pretty crowded. So for people to have to take that extra step and buy a ticket to this one shows, and we score from a corner in this game, it shows me that Big Chicken is alive and well and truly controls the RIFC soccer market and the soccer market in Rhode Island. Leo, I know you've been in the chat on many of these talks with my nice aluminum bonneted friend here. What is your thoughts on this? Are you a believer of the Big Chicken conspiracy theory, or did last night squash it for you?
I don't want to be. Honestly, I'd love to think that is the first of many. And it just so happened to come then. I'm more hopeful on this topic than I feel a lot of others are.
Yeah, that is fair. Hans, did this further Big Chicken for you, or did this kind of dispel the myth?
I think it furthers it, to be honest with you. I actually wasn't as fully on board, but they're making a good point. And we got the chicken in a game where, like you said, there were the fewest people at the stadium. So I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to, denounce the conspiracy theory until we get an actual goal in league play or in the Jaeger. I guess that counts too, but especially in league
I wish
play.
It was still the Jaeger. It is the Prinks Tire Cup now,
yeah.
which is still bizarre. I think it's going to be one. I think the Jaeger Cup is going to kind of still exist like Twitter, where nobody calls X Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
It's nobody's going to call it the Prinks Cup. It's going to be the Jaeger Cup as far as the sickos are concerned. Chris B said in the chat, and go ahead, Leo.
Oh, sorry, Matt. As the guys on the USL show have mentioned, have any of you ever come across a Prinks tire? I don't think I have.
I think the only thing I know about Prince Stars is that little credit card sticker they gave us for the back of the phone outside of one of the games last year. I don't even remember if it was a cup game or just a regular game. It would have been one of the national broadcast games. But I don't know what it is. I don't know. We'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I don't either.
But
They did a like IndyCar like versions of all the teams, I think, in year 1 or something.
oh, that was them. I did see that.
I think that was them. But yeah,
All right.
but Leo's totally right. I've never seen that before in my life.
Chris P mentions in the chat, we're talking about the small crowd size there. 5,000, 500 or 10,000. It was still fun. We did say that in our opening. Last night was such a great atmosphere. It was great shenanigans throughout, great chanting, great heckling. We mentioned Lucas Verge, the goalie, and that response. It's such a fun game. Don't want to take away that, but when we're talking numbers on this, we're strictly talking chicken. And a big question that Ryan wants to know, Leo, Ryan is here in the chat. Hopefully he's holding baby Healy and he's showing baby Healy himself on screen with the tinfoil bonnet on, surrounded by Big Chicken. Leo, are you in the pocket of Big Chicken?
Nah, look, I'll be honest with you. If we don't see it, I'm on board with you guys. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that it's not, but should be proven otherwise, I'm on your side.
All right, so we'll do a mid-year assessment. So when we get through the halfway point of league play, we'll reassess our stance on Big Chicken. Ryan says a Big Chicken sympathizer in my place. Unbelievable. What a night to be alive. If you haven't already and you're in that chat, make sure you smash that like button and let us know in the chat. What is your thoughts on Big Chicken? Do you believe the Big Chicken conspiracy, or was last night's goal enough to take it away from you? We'll see. And then William says, I don't recall Leo eating lots of Chick-fil-A back in college, but who knows? So could be a take there. All right, we'll shift gears a little bit, get it back on the more serious side, but let's just admire that slide for another, couple seconds. Like I said, hopefully Ryan's holding baby Healy saying, hey, look at Dad. That might have been my finest moment ever on a podcast. Good father-son moment there. All right. So next up, we have first half stats. RIFC had the lion's share of possession with 76%. We outshot Faialense 15-2 with 8 shots on target, 0 for Faialense, 3 big chances created to 0, 1 big chance missed, 0, 326 passes at 90% for RIFC to just 68 at 61 for Faialense. 6 fouls RIFC, 1 for Faialense, and 6 corners to 1, and that 1 big corner that we were able to convert on. We'll start with you, Leo. Big overall overarching thoughts on the first half of this one.
Yeah, I think it went probably about as a lot of us would have expected. Just dominant possession on the ball, probably exactly as Kano had envisioned in terms of there being actual progression with the ball. Like I think I had mentioned from the Sporting Jacks game, similar idea to less just kind of aimless passing along the back line, a lot more seeking forward. But with us being shifted further forward, it also helped prevent a lot of breakout attempts from Faialense as well. So, I mean, the possession and the pass numbers, whether accurate or not, definitely line up accordingly. Because it seemed like any time that they were able to get on the ball, it was a lot of just a couple passes, trying to bring it up, and then immediate dispossess or immediate pass that was out of the reach of the teammate straight to RIFC again. So it was kind of, I mean, dominant, I guess is the simple word for it. But for lack of a better word, I'll just leave it at that.
No, I think that's pretty well said. Hans, before I kick to you, I do have to go back to Big Chicken. There is a good comment in the chat from Matt Jean, and he said this to me live. I apologize for not recalling it. If we stop scoring corners when Ryan is back in Tidewater, we really know what the conspiracy is. So could the conspiracy actually be against corner kicks, or could it just be against Ryan Healy? Big Chicken might just have a personal vendetta against Ryan Healy. That could be the bigger talk about Big Chicken. So again, we'll do a mid-year assessment on where we stand with Big Chicken. I thank you, Matt, for the comment in the chat. Anything to go back to the slide was totally well worth it. Hans, we'll start with you. We'll go to you now on your thoughts over on the first 45.
Yeah, pretty much agree with Leo. I think I mean, basically what was expected. I mean, if it wasn't like this, I'd probably be a little bit concerned, honestly. I mean, yeah, like Leo said, good performance, got the ball forward, kept the ball in forward areas, pressed them, didn't really give up anything on the other end. So, yeah, I mean, about what you would expect against the level of competition that we had. I think it was obviously great to get the 2 goals to kind of put the game away already by halftime. Yeah, that's basically that, as expected.
We got some really good takes in Terrace Talk. So if you're newer to this and don't follow us on Instagram, we're doing some shorts before and during the matches. So at halftime, I'll go around with the mic and ask people their thoughts and their updated score prediction. And a lot of people nailed the 4-0 at halftime on this one. They saw us doubling up the lead. Joe Burns had an epic quote about having a fever and needing more Kevin Vang. Love it. Love the cowbell replacement there. And if you haven't already watched that reel, you got to go listen to it for our guy, Tyler. Tyler went on just an amazing rant about the first half performance. It was beautiful. It was well done. He waxed poetically. Just totally worth it. I don't know if it was that generated so many views on that reel or just the simple fact that the cover photo is Mr. Joe Burns. Sex sells, I guess. And, having Joe Burns as our cover guy for that was what absolutely nailed it. So big shout out to everyone and big thank you to everyone who hopped on the mic. Again, if you are ever at the stadium, come find me at halftime. I'll usually be right in 116, hopping around with that blue mic, asking people for their thoughts. If you want to share your takes, you can get yourself on our socials as well. But overall, a very dominant first half. Maybe a little less fewer goals than people had initially expected. But if you look at the passing, the 90%, that's pretty impressive. And, it wasn't just backwards like we saw a lot last year. There was some nice probing balls going up flanks through the middle, and the team looked pretty strong in this one. So we'll shift gears a little bit and head on into the second half. The scoring was a little bit more delayed in this one as RIFC got off the mat in the 78th minute to take a 3-0 lead.
Rodriguez. Cleefy chasing him from behind. Wide for Sanchez. Lacrosse, the header, and it's 3-0. Scardina off the bench, onto the score sheet. A play that looked dead. Sanchez kept it alive. And likely the icing on.
So with this one, I would say it was a very nice ball, although a little bit overweighted from Pitti out to Sanchez on the flank there. And then Aldair does a great job of just actually getting to it and, getting that ball across the face of goal in a really nice quality header from Nick Scardina in this one. We'll start with you, Hans. Take us through this goal and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it was really well worked. Pitti at the center of it, kind of dictating things in midfield, which is pretty much what he did the whole time after he came on. Yeah, you're probably right. A little bit too far, a little bit too heavily weighted for Aldair, but Aldair got there, and then I think Aldair perfect cross, textbook, staying the ball up at the back post, and nice header from Scardina back across. So really good to see. Hopefully we can see more of Scardina in those areas. I think he kind of struggled to get in those positions against Sporting Jacks. Seemed a little bit slow to get there at times. But yeah, hopefully that's a sign of more things to come from him. So really, really good goal, really good movement. So I was very happy about that one.
For sure. Like the announcer said, Leo, it kind of looked like a dead play as that ball went heavy out down to the end line, by Pitti to Aldair, and Aldair made the nice recovery. Take us through your thoughts on that one.
I would agree. I think Matt covered it well. I feel like it took great advantage of some of the space that was beginning to open up. Like I had mentioned earlier with the close quarters right on the front side of the box, it felt like we were playing a little more, not far out on the wings, but really on the edge of the box. Because that first goal was just inside the right edge of the box. This goal was just created from just inside the left edge of the box there. And I mean, really and truly, like Scardina, there were guys around him, but he was unmarked. So it was good to see him take advantage of that opportunity for sure. And to kind of touch briefly on something I think, Matt, you had said, comparing it to his performance against Jacksonville. I mean, like, all credit to CD Faialense for what they did. They definitely did defend very well. And like, statistically, I was looking at it earlier. The way that the stats ended up breaking down when it came to defending, like on SofaScore, it said the RIFC had won 60% of their tackles, but CD Faialense won 84%, which it felt like a pretty interesting comparison to me, especially considering the domination that it felt like RIFC was having. But I feel like that number is a great example of what CD Faialense was able to do as they were sitting more compressed.
Good shout.
So playing out further on the wing and creating that spread, again, similar to what I mentioned with Danny's run, potentially creating on that first goal, had he not finished it himself, is something to be said. But in addition, I think against Sporting Jacks, there was also a certain just difference in terms of who we were seeing over there. I think one of the people that Sporting Jacks had out there on Saturday that was really under-addressed was Tyshawn Rose. What he was able to do on that side against Scardina, I think, is a large part of why we saw more from him tonight compared to what we did on Saturday. So I feel like what my personal expectation is somewhere in the middle for Scardina. I think we see a lot of what we saw last night, but I think we also are potentially going to see some of what we saw on Saturday again. So
that's a really good shot. I like that. I like Sarah's comment in the chat too. Love the Sanchez Scardina connection. They played together as kids. Cool to see them connecting again as adults and professionally. I think that's a really cool little side piece of that as well. Also worth noting, the photo that we used as our full time was our good friend Timmy Sclafani popping a smoke, and it was after this goal. So if you were with us at High Motor, or if you read the player ratings after the Sporting Jacks game, Timmy was very low on Scardina. So to see him in this moment pop the smoke and, kind of have to celebrate Scardina, I think was truly, truly awesome. We also have, we gave him a lot of stick for it at High Motor, amateur sketch of, the person out there slandering Scardina. And if you knew who he was, if you know who this person is, please point him out to us. We definitely want to correct that, and we definitely want to,
very decent,
kind of see that taken care of, see that nicked. All right. I started the Nick Scardina fan club last night, and boy, did he deliver! I absolutely love it. So again, if you see this man, tell him he needs to reassess his ball knower status, as he was all over Nick Scardina, and Nick came in as a very good sub, and I thought had a very good game in this one. We thought he had a second goal, but turns out later it did get a touch, so it was an own goal. But if you see Timmy, or if you read his blog, comment on his blog and let him know he's totally wrong about Scardina. I think he'll love to hear it. But just a few minutes later, it was that goal that we later saw become an own goal off the deflection. But here's how this one played out.
very decent side there. So fantastic quality coming in here to Rhode Island.
Long ball, chase down, and it's 4, just like that. Scardina does it again. He's got a brace in a matter of 2 minutes.
So for me, this actually all kind of stemmed from Frank drawing a foul. Frank got pulled back just outside the box, played the ball to Clay, which is perfect and furthers my narrative of the Nick Scardina fan club, because Clay wasn't playing right wing back in this situation. He was playing in the midfield and played a beautiful long ball over the top to Scardina. And that doesn't happen with Clay Holstead at right back. And why is Clay Holstead in the midfield, you ask me, Matt Hands? It's because Nick Scardina is out there at right back. So, Leo, we'll start with you on this one. Your thoughts on this goal? Did take that little deflection, so did go as an own goal, but, the build-up, the lead-up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you touched on there, Matt, is not only important to this moment, but I think, like you're kind of leading, important just to how we can operate. But specifically on Scardina, I'll be quite honest, the first time I saw it on the broadcast, it looked kind of like it was straight off of Scardina's foot. But it definitely took a pretty serious deflection. I'm curious as to where that would have ended up had it not. But either way, just even his ability to be able to maintain enough control on it with the defender bearing down on him from behind, to be able to try to get a touch on that. Because at first it almost looked like he was trying to stretch a little far for it, but it was good control on his part, body control, as well as just being able to maintain the control of the ball itself in that close quarter.
Hans, your thoughts?
Yeah, not much more to add. I think it was a good pass, obviously, to get the ball to him. And again, just like the previous goal, like glad to see him in the box in that area. Obviously, like Leo was saying, depending on opposition, it's going to be tougher, to see him there all the time. But I think when he has the opportunity, he's shown now that he can finish. It doesn't matter who you're playing against; you still have to have the right technique to be able to finish with the header. And then, of course, with this one, even though it took that deflection, still a good touch and control to be able to do that. So, yeah, very, very happy about it. And yeah, like you said, Matt, the additional good thing about him is that he's playing out there and Clay gets to play in midfield, which really is my bigger thing this season for us in general. Is I'm happy that it seems like we have enough depth or enough players that can be playing in their natural roles. So, obviously you're going to have injuries at times and players need to rest, what have you. So you're going to have some players filling in at spots. It's not you're never going to go through a whole season without that, but it is really good to kind of see that, knock on wood, but that Clay should be staying in the midfield, in a natural position. So
Absolutely love it. So we'll go through kind of the second half stats for this one. Possession was 77% for RIFC to 29 for Faialense. We outshot them 11-5 in the second half. 4 on target to 1. 2 big chances, 1 big chance missed. 280 passes in that second half at 89%. To 74 at 64%, and 1 foul to 6. 0 corners in that second half after the 6 in the first half. And then here's your final stats for this one. So Leo, we'll kick it to you. Overall thoughts on this game and how we kind of handled a lesser opponent in still a meaningful game, and we're able to advance to the next round of the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt Hans covered well the thought that we didn't necessarily get very far out of first gear, if at all.
Is that okay?
That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm happy we won. Don't get me wrong. And I appreciate CD Faialence's fight, because I think that showed through really well, especially in that really good offensive pressing spell that they had in the second half, shortly after we saw the subs to bring I believe it was Pitti and Leo on. It seemed like that was when they kind of hit a stride. I know on the broadcast they were repeatedly talking about the idea that a goal from Faialense when it was 2-0 to make it 2-1 would be really exciting for the neutral. I heard it so many times, I know it by heart now. But between that and just the way that whoa, I just went blank. Anyway,
it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that to say, essentially, I don't know that I really take a lot of excitement out of this in terms of just like the general performance, because it felt clunky at times. Like, despite the fact that we were pressing forward consistently, it did still feel like there was a little bit of disconnect as we were going forward. I kind of expected to see a little more of Noah pressing himself into this game. He was definitely there. He was involved. But I was a little shocked at, I guess, just the lack of clear, obvious impact on the goal scoring side of things, which, again, those were his first minutes of this season as a starter. And he was out there with people that I don't know whether he's really been. I don't know.
Probably an 11 that never really, functioned together before at any point, and a lot of new players in that mix. So I think kind of seeing that lineup maybe expected a little bit of clunkiness, and I think that that could be why.
Yeah. So personally, I feel like I see more encouragement in specific player performances out of this, and I mean, I'll touch on it when we get to takes and all further on. Just where we saw the production from than anything else.
Sure. Sarah says it could have been Big Chicken stealing your mind there. Worth noting, you didn't have a foil bonnet on. But Hans, your thoughts, kind of big picture on this one?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of touched on one of my big things, which is that, we had a lot of players out there who we had a combination of players out there who probably aren't going to play together too much, at least like in the first half. Obviously, we brought on more of the starters. I think there was 5 starters from the weekend came on in the second half. But I don't really take like too much away from this game outside of getting to see the young players, the new guys, so Peters and Williams, and also kind of the enjoyment of seeing Kevin Vang out there and him having a really good game. That's kind of like what my main takeaway is. And like I mentioned earlier, like I don't think we got out of first gear, and I think that's fine. Because to me, like no disrespect to Faialense, but this was pretty much to me like almost a glorified like exhibition. Like we weren't going to lose this game. And to me, the only way I was going to really criticize the team is if it wasn't, put away early, or if the game was in the balance still by halftime. I think you would be like, oh, what are we doing out there? But we very obviously put it away early at 2-0. I think, and kind of continued along the same way in the second half. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I don't think this game is going to say much about the rest of our season, other than seeing that maybe like a CJ Williams could be someone who could get some minutes. I think in USL play, potentially. I think probably as like a backup to Diop maybe on the left side of a back three if we continue to play that way, which I assume we probably will.
When we continue to play that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of surprised us with the back four, but I think the back four was obviously just to get some guys some rest in this one. But I'm overall happy with it. We won 4-0, got the job done. I didn't need us to go out there and get 7 or 8 goals. I think this was pretty solid. Good to get some guys some minutes, and that's basically my main takeaway.
For sure. William's going to go in the chat. I think a 3-0 would have been a minimum for this game. I agree with that. So I understand what Leo meant about the excitement of this game. And like Hans, you mentioned, kind of a glorified exhibition, glorified friendly of a game that we should win, right? Absolutely. Another good one from Matt is I really wanted and expected to see Busy go wild last night. We've seen him be much more effective as a sub for RIFC than anytime he started. I think back to the Hartford game away last year. And, I think anytime he starts, it's kind of a different role for him. So I think he is a much better spark off the bench than he is coming on and playing 60 to 80 minutes and whatever it might be, because I don't think he can really run for the full 90 with that burst that he has. But we're going to go to the socials right now and share people's good, better, best, and RIFC and threes from this one. We'll start in the Defiance 1636 Discord. Sam D's good was Sanchez played pretty good. Better, finally scored off a corner. Best, at least both teams had fun. I think at least the Faialense keeper seemed to in the first half. We already talked about that. Just an absolute maybe, and I'll use Matt Jean's good as the next take on here. Lucas Verge, opposing goalie, is the best visiting player ever. I think that kind of sums it up very nicely. Better, finished the game strong. Best, Danny Rivera showing why he needs more minutes. RFC in 3, we got chicken. Our friend Tyler's good was body positivity. Better, Tuesday night for the sickos. Best, firm first home win of the year. RIFC in 3, oh no, Portland, as the Portland Hearts of Pine and all their virtue signaling dropped their U.S. Open Cup match to the Vermont Green. You'll love to see it. Our friend Leo, who's on with us tonight, his good was impressive debut performances for Gogo and CJ. Better, Kevin Vang's flashes of creativity and vision. Best, 3 goals scored and or forced by right wing backs, and a 4th goal scored from a corner to secure our first home Open Cup win. RIFC in 3, CD account closed. Leo, anything else you want to elaborate on and any other takes you want to share?
No, I think we kind of touched on just the impact that we saw from Danny and from Nick, and specifically with the corner. That's really my biggest encouraging takeaway from the game, is that we saw, despite who we were playing, we saw production in an area that a lot of us have been clamoring for something not Clay.
Right.
So I think that was huge and a real encouragement.
That's a very, very good point. We'll continue with the Defiant 1636 Discord. Pawtucket J, his good was Kevin looking good. Better, the creation of a fan club. Nick Scardina fan club is out, and the Faialense goalie. We had 2 last night, I think. Best, the soon-to-be in-person one-on-one exclusive interview with guest Scardina featuring our very own Nostradamus himself, Timmy. Oh, I love that. That's good stuff. RIFC in 3, I need summer. I'm with you, man. I was home with my 6th son today, and I took my oldest to basketball, and I was like, holy shit, it's cold out. Like, we're being bundled up and inside all day. Terrace, RFC in 3, did our job. Good, we won. Better, we scored 4 goals. Best, we scored on the corner. Free chicken for everyone. Andrew Milko's good was we can score on corners. Better, good to see some new and old faces. Definitely good seeing all of them get some minutes. Best was the Danny goal. Like we said, I don't know what was better, the goal itself or the pass. Just a beautiful build up and lead into that one. And his RFC in 3 was onwards and cupwards. I like that. That's in contention for episode title. Absolutely love that one. So thank you to everyone who wrote in on the Defiant 1636 Discord. We'll head to Facebook, where we had both of the Petersons write in. Paris wrote in, who the boss, love it. And Chris Peterson wrote in, great Tuesday night. Thank you guys for sharing those on Facebook. And last but not, we got Twitter and Instagram left. We'll start with Twitter. Our guy Tyler Hatch, his RFC in 3 was fun little kick around. Good Danny Rivera, better Kevin Vang, best CJ Williams. Love that. RFC UK, our friend Scott had goals. His good was the first clean sheet in Open Cup. His better was Vang, assist was tasty. Best was consistently putting up aggressive offensive stats so far. A lot of the new guys looking very promising, and definitely agree with Scott on that. And somebody said it in the chat a little bit earlier too about how much they love the new signings and kind of love what we're seeing from all of these new guys. And we will wrap it up on Instagram, where we had none. Perfect. It was just a comment on it with an emoji. So thank you to everyone who wrote in. Again, if you're new to this, we post after each match, usually looking for RAFC in 3, what we call, where we like to get your 3-word summary, how you would sum up that match in 3 words, kind of give it your headline, have some fun with it. We usually take those as the episode titles. And then we either do good, better, best on a good night like last night, or good, bad, and ugly on a less than good night. So make sure you're following us on all of our socials, and we'll get all of that going, and we'll share all of your takes live on each episode. But overall, a very solid night. The final stats on this one, I do want to go to a little spotlight here, and I highlighted 3 guys that probably aren't going to get many more flowers throughout the season. Maybe Danny will, maybe CJ will. Kevin, I think, would kind of see a little bit more minutes in Cup, but I think all 3 of these players were great, and they definitely deserve their moment in the sun and their shine on this, as these are 3 players that we don't generally talk about too much, kind of based on their roles, although CJ is a new player, so we'll still kind of learning a bit about him. But 3 great performances last night from these 3, and starting with Kevin Vang, he had an 8.2 FOTMOB rating, 1 assist, created 3 chances, had an 89% passing accuracy. Very well done in the midfield for that. 87 total touches. CJ Williams had an 8.5 on FOTMOB, scored that goal off the corner, had 9 passes into the final third. So really cool seeing him pull some strings from the back line. 99 passing percentage accuracy. He was 77 of 78 on his passes on the night, with 92 total touches. Just a really good debut and a really good way to introduce yourself to the RFC fans in your first moment on the pitch at Tidewater. Well done, CJ. And last but not least, the FOTMOB man in the match with a 9.0 FOTMOB rating, 1 goal, 9 defensive contributions, 94% passing, and 110 total touches for Mr. Danny Rivera. Just an outstanding performance. I know, like I've mentioned, I started the Nick Scardina fan club. I think Matt Jean is the president of the Danny Rivera fan club. So again, all 3 of these guys had an absolutely awesome night. We'll start with you, Hans. Your take on these 3 and what they did.
Yeah. Yeah, great to see. Great stuff from all of them. I'm interested now to see what minutes they do get in, whether it be in the league or in the Pranks Cup. But still, I'm always going to want to call it Jaeger. Um, but yeah, the Jaeger, particularly maybe against League One opposition. Who knows? Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens to them going forward. But they all had great games. Of course, as I said earlier, I'm going to spotlight my guy CJ. I thought CJ was great. Good to see him stepping up from the back line too. I think playing with Yao kind of allowed him to do that. Yao would stay back, and he would kind of
Good
step
point.
up into the midfield, and then that's kind of how we got those 9 passes into the final third. So, very good stuff from him. Great stuff from all of them. So it's really, like I was saying earlier, it's to me the main takeaway from the game really is we got to see these guys go out and see what they can do and have great moments out there. So.
One stat spotlight I didn't include. Thank you, Timmy, for adding in the chat. CJ kind of bought people dinner tonight, so that ranks very highly in FOTMOP.
He served some people to dinner as well.
Yeah, that's true. Leo, your thoughts on any of these three and their performances?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Matt was saying. I appreciated seeing that performance out of Danny first because I think that was a good example for why he was brought back. Right, because I think some of people, myself honestly included, were kind of expecting him to be one of the people that was on the way out after last season, just seeing the usage from last season. And typically when we see guys not get a lot of usage on this team in its history, they're usually out next year. But I think this was a good example of what was capable and we just weren't able to see last year because of injury or what have you. Kevin Vang, I was very impressed with. I think we hear a lot about what he does in terms of like the locker room. He's a great locker room guy, things like that. And now I think we've been able to also see more of his capabilities on the pitch than even we may have been able to see over the last couple of years. So that was just really, really cool and really encouraging to know that he's there should something be needed. And
I
CJ,
think to that locker room point, it also probably speaks to what he brings, what he offers at training. If he's playing like that at training, he's helping the team get better and preparing for opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like I've heard it. I don't remember if it was on Tide Talk or on Raising Anchor, just people talk about how intense he is and that just the motivation that he brings with regards to that. So to move on to CJ, I appreciated Matt Hans's thought of him potentially being the backup for Ja, because I think we've seen over the course of the first 2 seasons how important a left-footed left center back is in the way that this club tends to play best, especially in the back three. I mean, we saw the back four last night, but quite frankly, just with how it was all shaking out, like Matt, you brought up the Karifa being really the one back most of the time. It really kind of played pretty similarly to how it looks when we're playing a back three, because CJ Williams and Karifa were quite often not a insignificant distance inside the offensive half for most of the game. So it was just that tracking back whenever the ball was cleared deep, they were able to just pretty easily run back on it and get it back to Koke to just alleviate any of that pressure. So I'm encouraged seeing what CJ is capable of doing. I think it's just a very solid performance, and he seems to fit exactly what we tend to expect out of a center back in Kano's system. That comfort and composure on the ball and not being afraid to try to thread a good pass through, especially progressively and looking further up the field than a typical center back might look.
Love that. But I think that's very well said.
Yeah. And I also wanted to just kind of put the spotlight also a little bit on Gogo Peters as well. I think despite the fact that he didn't score, I think he definitely was impressive coming off that right wing. He had moments of really good progression as well. The one thing I would say with him, I kind of wish he would have just taken shots himself a couple of times. But then again, he did also put that cross into Dorsey that ended up going off the post one time when I thought he should have shot. So
he did have 11 touches in the opposing box. So I thought he had some really good turns. I thought he looked really good on the ball. So I think it's kind of when that's your strength, when you're playing with a totally like new set of guys and a whole new set of guys playing with each other. For a lot of this is kind of finding out how you're going to get your touches, when you're going to get your touches, and what to do with it when you have it. So I think that was a little, kind of initiation or growing into it for him. But I really liked, he had a turn in the first half. He was just outside the box and cut it in onto his left. And I thought there was some really good moments for him. I think he's got some good size and some pretty good speed too. So I think he can be a potential future one to watch.
Yeah, he's got good size, and he seemed to be pretty capable of using it too with his physicality as well, both on and off the ball and trying to recover it. So,
yep. You got a nice shout out in the chat. Timmy says Leo has a great podcast voice. Shoot.
Thank you, Timmy.
So, all right, that was our spotlight for this one. We'll shift gears a little bit as we wrap up this one and looking to Louisville. So, I think the bigger news than their record in their first two matches, what we have to start with is Danny Cruz resigns as Louisville's manager. He's off to MLS to join Minnesota United as an assistant coach. A lot of chat around this one of why would he leave being a head coach to being an assistant coach, and I would assume he's making a substantial lot more money in MLS as an assistant than he is as a USL championship head coach. Matt Hands, the rumor on the street, the reason he chose Minnesota was because of that badass Star Wars tifo they had. Is that true?
Could be. But no, I think the main question here, right, is how significant this is going to be for our game coming up this weekend with him moving on. I think maybe not as much as one might think. They got a lot of good players. It's still Louisville. Obviously he was at the helm for their, fantastic seasons that they've had, but they still have a lot of talent. Yeah, Timmy's a huge Andor stan. They still have a lot of talent, so I don't think there's going to be much of a drop off there with him out.
Yeah, and they did promote from within, naming an interim manager from their current staff, and then promoted another coach to, I believe, assistant manager. Leo, do you think this affects anything? Usually teams get the new manager bounce, but this is also a very well-oiled machine that is keeping people inside to coach this team.
Yeah, I mean, if there is such a thing as a new manager bounce for Lou City, I am terrified.
Look out, league. Look out, league.
Look out. Goodness gracious. But no, I think what Matt had mentioned is definitely is a solid base in Lou City. I mean, if you look even at the opener, you see the Lexington Sporting Club 2-1 win that they had.
That was a very entertaining game too.
And it was Mukwele Akale coming in off the bench to really spark that win. When you got Mukwele Akale coming off the bench, I mean, ouch. I don't know. Of course, there's always some sort of difference when there's a coach change, but if it were any club other than Lou City, I feel like I'd take that concept more seriously. But Lou City just feels like the kind of club that it's like, especially if they promote from within, that force isn't going anywhere.
Right. It like we've seen in the past, it is a very strong squad. It's also worth noting, though, they do have the 2 wins. They're 2-0 to start their USL championship campaign. 2-1, as Leo mentioned, versus Lexington, and the 4-1 drubbing of Miami. We generally played this team tough. We were kind of their bogey team for a little bit. Even at that rainy night in Tidewater, we gave them a hell of a game last season, but a team that we always play tough. And right now, as we kind of look to end this one, and we'll end it with score predictions. So if you're watching, smash that like button and throw your score prediction in the chat so we can share those out. But I do think there is a result to be had down in Louisville this weekend. I think this RIFC team can, go out there and battle. We did hear some reports from Raising Anchor that Kano was less than happy with the professional approach to this one, and this could have been kind of the Faialense game, looking ahead to a very strong league competitor in this one. So hopefully that was, I would assume that was a fire 'em up tactic from Kano, and we got one of the best teams in the league on Saturday, and we have to be ready for that one. So we'll start in the chat right now. We got the Ghost of FQB 2-1 RIFC picking the win on the road. Pawtucket J saying they're ripe for the picking. He's thinking this Danny Cruz thing is really going to kind of change things. Williams got a 1-1 tie. We'll start with you, Hans. What's your score prediction? How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, so I'm gonna get some groans for this, but I'm doing the blog tomorrow. We have it out for Friday. So, but my initial thought, you have to read to see if I change my mind. So you can bash me for changing my mind if I do. But no, my initial thought, it's probably a 2-2 draw. I think we're gonna be able to score. I think I was encouraged, even though, Sporting Jack's much, kind of lesser competition. I was encouraged by what we were able to do attacking wise, even though we couldn't finish our chances. I think we can be more clinical in Louisville, but also it's still Louisville. So wouldn't surprise me at all if, they get some goals as well, as you would expect. So I'm going 2-2 draw.
Pawtucket Jays also go to 2-1 RAFC win in this one, and FQB adds, we play well against Lou City and we play well at Lynn Family. Timmy says, I'd take a 2-2. 2-2 draw. Pretty happy, to be honest. Pawtucket J asked a good question. Did the departure change anyone's score? I don't know, because like we talked about, this is a very well-oiled machine. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think this kind of plays out a little bit more like that Lexington game, but I think our defense is able to kind of hold on. And I'm going to go with Leo opening his RAFC account in this one. I think he's going to get on the goals. Very impressed with what I saw from him so far. So, Leo, take us to your score prediction and how you see this one playing out.
I really liked your Leo shout, Matt. I think we saw a lot from him for him not being the one to score the goal. So I also wouldn't be shocked if we see Leo actually convert.
He shoots the ball a lot.
He's got some venom on his shot. So I'm excited to see more of him. I hate doing this, but I predict we're going to see a 2-1 Lou City win. I just think, I'll put it this way, I think it's too soon. I think we're seeing Lou City way too soon in the season to be able to confidently predict that we are going to put up more than one goal on them. Just based off of what we've seen thus far in these first couple of games, I'd love to think different, but I think later in the season it could be a different story. But I think right now there's still too much to prove when it comes to what we're capable of doing. And I think, like, part of my thinking behind my 3-word match review of CD account closed was also an aspect that it seems like we are getting a little bit away from the safer options. It seems like we're trying to press forward a little more, and it kind of opened us up a little bit, allowing that Jacksonville tying goal from a couple individual moments of brilliance there. So getting a little more risky in how we're trying to approach the game. So maybe if the tactic, if the strategy is a little bit different against Lou City, respecting their high octane sort of offense like we saw last season, maybe things come out a little different and we drift towards a draw. But right now, just if we stick with what we've been seeing thus far this season stringently, which based on how we've seen last year, sometimes we do kind of stick to things and see if they work for a couple weeks. So that would be my thought if we see the same sort of outlook that we saw at least against Jacksonville in the league.
And I think that's a very reasonable and fair shout at this point, like you said, with it being so early in the season. Timmy agrees with you. He's got 2-1 to Lou City. Matt Leonard's got 1-0 to the good guys. So we'll definitely see how this plays out. I guess the biggest thing is I probably should have asked Zach before coming on what his score prediction was, because he's usually in the know on these type of things. But I will add, again, like if you haven't already, we did receive the 24-hour Purple People approved trophy from the Louisville Fan Podcast. So you can go check them out if you haven't, if you want to learn a little bit more about Louisville and kind of hear what their thoughts are on this whole Danny Cruz situation. Great guys that run an awesome podcast and made the trip to Rhode Island last season. So you can check out their content if you want to learn a little bit more about the machine that is Louisville City. So we shall see what happens this weekend. Before we end it, we'll go around the horn. Hans, any final thoughts? Anything else you want to add in to this one?
No, I don't think so. Just really excited for Saturday. I think Leo has a decent point that it's kind of early for us to be meeting Louisville to, have a full expectation of what's going to happen. Yeah, for a true test. And then also kind of early for Louisville, right, with their coach departing. So you don't really know if they're going to bring someone in or if they're going to stick with the interim for a while. So who knows? But still a very exciting game. I think it is still a good way for us to test ourselves. So, yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Leo, how about you?
No, I agree. I'm excited for what we're going to end up seeing this season because I think we're definitely seeing something different, which is what we were hoping for a long time. So I think even if it doesn't necessarily look as clean, I'm excited to see what will hopefully be more exciting production on the field, but still with a decent bit of defensive grit to it. Based on who we still have in our back line.
Yep, all very good points. I think it'll be a battle. I was the biggest doomer on the preseason kind of predictions and where I picked this team, but after watching them play for 2 games, I think we have a lot more depth than I initially thought. I really like the style and the attacking play that we saw against Sporting Jacks, and interested to see how that'll play out versus a juggernaut like Louisville, and how much we actually go for it compared to sitting back and looking to strike on the counter like we have in the past against them. But want to thank everyone for joining. Please hit that like button on the way out and subscribe if you haven't already. But Leo, we'll end it with you in this question. First podcast appearance. How'd you like it? Did you get the nerves out? How you feeling?
Yeah, it's fun. I think it was definitely a little more comforting with it being like me just talking to you guys, like as far as I can feel, I don't do great in crowds or in front of crowds, but I can get a little more comfortable. But I really do appreciate this opportunity for you to be able to come on and just talk soccer, talk RIFC with you guys. It's been a blessing. Thank you.
Awesome. It was great having you. We'll have to have you back on at some point this season as well. But that'll wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on all of your social media platforms, wherever you scroll for daily social media content. Click that link in this episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, for Hans, for Leo. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.